Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem.
We take the idea of freedom for granted.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
But there was a time in America's history when everyone didn't have it.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like you sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that. Have an auction bench and they put you up on the bench and bid on you, the same as bidding on cattle, you know.
American chattel slavery started in 1619, leaving a legacy of pain and political unrest in its wake, until it was formally ended nearly 250 years later.
Well, can you remember what happened when they set you free?
I remember, the time they give them a big dinner, on the 19th.
Is that right?
On the 19th, that's called, they give them a big dinner on the 19th.
But when the last of the slaves in Texas found out that they were free on June 19th, 1865, history will call that day Juneteenth.
There are a lot of myths around Juneteenth. One of the biggest is that it ended slavery. And of course, we know that wasn't the case. More than one state still held on to slavery, and it took the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery in states like Delaware. The other important myth, or one of the important myths, was again related to that Texas was the last state to abolish slavery. It was not.
What Juneteenth actually was a celebration. When Abraham Lincoln wrote the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, it declared that all persons held as slaves are and henceforward shall be free. But news didn't travel fast. Some slave owners ignored the order, while others moved their slaves out west to avoid run-ins with Union soldiers.
And old master didn't tell you, it was free.
He didn't tell you that?
No, he didn't tell. They waited. I think now they said they waited them 6 months out of that. 6 months. And turned them loose on the 19th of June.
Union soldiers spread the news in Texas, officially ending slavery for the blacks that lived there.
Some of the narratives suggest that slave owners in Texas knew about the Emancipation Proclamation, and maybe they did, but didn't want to release their slaves for economic reasons. Others suggest that, we didn't have internet back then, and that it took 2.5 years for the word to get to Galveston, Texas. And of course, the Union Army had to enforce President Lincoln's word about emancipation. And so some suggest that it took that long to get a Union soldier there to make the announcement to slaves.
When slaves heard that they were free, celebrations ensued.
That's why, you celebrate that day, colored folks. Celebrate that day.
And this particular emancipation celebration in Texas would turn into the national holiday we know today.
Juneteenth celebrations have always been about the arts as well. Gospel music, poetry, the Negro National Anthem. These are all things that you're going to find at almost every African-American celebration of Juneteenth, which I also want to understand as religious holidays.
But after slavery was abolished, former slaves now faced an unknown world and lots of confusion.
What does one do with one's identity and one's life if slavery is abolished? And this is why some people didn't leave the plantations. Where were they supposed to go? What were they supposed to do? So there's all kind of competing emotional, religious, and economic factors and things that people have to consider. All that time they had known themselves as enslaved folks. What were they supposed to do now? And so it was confusing.
The 13th Amendment became a law the same year as that first Juneteenth celebration. The rest of America's relationship with former slaves and their descendants would be a rocky one. But historians say that's even more of a reason to celebrate and remember.
Juneteenth is an important holiday because it reminds us of how far we have come, but how much we still have to do. Juneteenth reminds us that we have to struggle for our freedom. No one gave it to us. And it's a reminder that the future is uncertain, but that we have to fight for what's ours. We have to fight for the freedom to be who we are and to celebrate our lives and our culture. And Juneteenth gives us a space to stop and to reflect on where we are and what we have done to get here.